hype and anticipation for Dragon Age the Veilguard has only gone up since the reveal this summer, and with each new update that we get, the game keeps looking even more impressive. And lucky for us, that continues with the latest reveal as it goes over some of the new details regarding the combat system that really lets us sink our teeth in the overall depth and customization that awaits. From the choices that you make building your character to the amazing combat that blends fluid action with other tactical RPG elements. Like, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I watch the high-level combat video from the Dragon Age blog, I immediately thought to myself, yep, these guys are doing it. So today we're going to dive into Dragon Age the Veilguard and discuss the latest new details. We have a lot to cover, so check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's get into it. So yesterday, the Dragon Age developers released a brand new journal number 6 called Lethality and Leveling, an inside look into Rook's warrior combat. So jumping into the blog post itself, they said this, and I quote, "Since our summer reveal in June, we've been reading all of the great excitement for the game and listening closely to what you'd like to see next. Our reveal trailer showed off the prologue and very beginning of the game, and now we want to shift our focus to the higher level combat. Today we're going to cover our game's combat system, looking at how Rook and companions can be built up to meet the perils facing Thetis using deep RPG systems." They then said that this starts with choosing a desired class, as there are 3 main classes to select from when creating a Rook: the Stalwart Warrior, the Deft Rogue, or the Spell-Slinging Mage. This blog and accompanying videos will focus on the Warrior class, and we'll have more details to share on other classes before launch. So that means we're going to get a deep dive into the Rogue class as well as the Mage class. I'm personally really excited to see the high-level combat for the Mage, so I cannot wait for that to happen. But continuing on with the blog, they said by choosing Warrior, the fighting style revolves around close combat and defense. Skills, traits, runes, and abilities are customizable to best suit that type of playstyle. The loadout will have slots for abilities accessed from the ability wheel. Picking which abilities from the mini in the arsenal to bring into battle is a strategic choice made for each encounter, and they could be swapped out anytime except during combat itself. Now, for some added depth, there are up to 3 equipable runes, and the runes provide a variety of control, utility, or additional damage to synergize with your builds. While in combat, all 3 runes can be cycled through and activated. They continue by saying that there's a wide range of potential abilities that are unique to each class and be customized by spending skill points. For example, the Warrior class will have certain abilities that deal fire damage. Players can plan their build around this, and each skill point spent could be in pursuit of this build. Each step taken is designed to augment Rook and or the abilities. Eventually, Rook will gain access to specializations, which grant powerful abilities unique to each specialization. And these specializations will provide a unique ultimate ability, more on that later, tuned to the theme of that specialization. So a Warrior specializing as a Grey Warden champion will gain access to the devastating incendiary Warden's Fire that launches a flurry of searing strikes that ignite foes like tinder. This is the best specialization area for defeating Darkspawn, an enemy that many Dragon Age fans know well. First off, we have the Warrior Rook specialization areas. There's the Reaper, become Knight's Blade, steal life, and risk death to gain incredible unnatural abilities. And then we've got the Slayer, leap into the fray, wield massive punishing weapons while rushing enemies to deal devastating blows. And then there's the Champion, be the shield, shrug off damage while summoning righteous fire down on enemies. Next up, we have the Rogue Rook specialization areas. First, we have Duelist, draw your steel, parry and dodge past enemies to gain strength with every strike. There's the Saboteur, set the stage, deploy explosives and turrets that devastate enemies, then pick them off with arrows. And then we have the Veil Ranger, hunt the enemy, snipe enemies from afar using artifacts that charge arrows with dangerous, powerful magic. And lastly, for the Mage Rook specialization areas, there's the Death Caller, embrace the dark, drain life from enemies, and cast spells that writhe with essence of death itself. Then we have the Evoker, call the void, freeze enemies in their tracks, then summon the deepest cold to tear them apart. And lastly, there is Spellblade, be the storm, channel potent spells for close quarters combat, and fuse with lightning's wrath. So they continued on by saying, now let's talk about the foundations of the combat system. The 4 core moves that all 3 classes share include jump, dodge, light attack, and heavy attack, which can all be chained together. Rook can dodge at any time, even mid attack, which adds fluidity to the combat. Is taking damage or dealing it better at the moment? Light attacks do quick damage and build small amounts of stagger. Heavier attacks are slower and build more stagger to your opponent. Once enough stagger is built, the enemy will be rendered more vulnerable to all incoming damage and allows Rook to perform a takedown. Each of these attacks, light or heavy, can be charged by holding down the button to deliver a more potent version of that strike. For example, a heavy attack can be charged while using a staff to unleash a magical wave of destructive energy. Attacks can also be triggered while sprinting and or jumping to add depth and fluidity to the combat. They then said, in addition, each class has a ranged attack, blocks, or parries if timed properly with the right weapon set, and the ability to control the companion's combat strategy. Each class has 2 distinct weapon sets which can be swapped seamlessly in the heat of battle. This drastically changes the available move sets and strategies. Heavy attacks remove armor barrier, denoted by a yellow bar, much faster, and ranged attacks remove shield barrier or the blue bar much faster as well. There's also a stagger meter denoted by the lavender bar, which builds as hits are landed against the enemy. Stagger creates opportunities for bonus damage and special takedowns. And then we have the ability wheel, which pauses the fight for more precise control over Rook's own abilities and those of their companions. And this is where the tactical RPG elements come into play. Players can use the ability wheel to assign companions to attack specific enemies individually or together. Abilities can also be bound by shortcut keys to keep the action flowing instead of always bringing up the ability wheel. Vulnerabilities and resistance of enemies can also be seen as targeting enemies in the ability wheel. For example, Darkspawn are weak to fire damage. Now this brings us to the third section of this blog, and that is the buffs, debuffs, and crowd control. They started off by saying some abilities apply buffs or debuffs to help you in the fight. For example, Darwin has the heroic strike ability, which applies the overwhelm debuff to enemies. This will increase the enemy's stagger and make it easier for Rook to perform a takedown. Now there are also area of effect abilities to help the party defeat large groups of enemies. Controlling the field of battle is a key consideration in Dragon Age of Veilguard. Players will need to consider which buffs and debuffs or crowd control abilities will work best for each situation. And then they said abilities require class resources, mana, momentum, and rage to be able to use. Each class primarily builds up their class resource by dealing damage with basic attacks. Now in addition to that, each class has a secondary way to build up their class resource. Warriors build rage by taking and dealing damage. Rogues build momentum by dodging attacks and parrying successfully, and mages regain mana passively over time. Warriors who go into battle with a sword and shield builds will have access to the shield throw volley. By landing a heavy attack on a shield throw return, the shield will ricochet, taking out multiple enemies. The sequence can repeat up to 3 times, causing a devastating ring of damage around Rook. This attack works well against swarms as well as distant adversaries. Other ways to manage distant enemies lean into companion abilities such as Darwin's Death from above. Tusindasan is Griffin to attack enemies. Warriors have the grappling spear ability to pull enemies close for an easier victory. With these tools, attacks can be chosen based on the type of enemy and the situation to dispatch foes in the most optimal way, especially on higher difficulties. So continuing on with the ultimate abilities, they said this, and I quote, "Many abilities include some type of coordinating effect and serve as either a primer or a detonator that can result in devastating combo attacks when properly executed with the companions. These ability combos can be set up in the ability wheel. And finally, you have your most powerful attack, the Rook's class ultimate ability. Doing damage to enemies increases your ultimate meter, and the ultimate meter won't fully fill during smaller skirmishes because they're designed to decimate a significant swath of the battlefield or the toughest bosses. All of these options combine together to create a rich combat experience that is highly customizable. The entire skill tree is also fully refundable, and skill points can be redistributed, so you're able to respec things by default. We encourage you to try out multiple builds, use different abilities for each mission, and change up the companions you bring into battle." They said that these videos have highlighted several ways that the players can achieve strategic combat in Dragon Age Veilguard, and we've put them all together in case you wanted to see them back to back. And in closing, they said there's a lot to explore in this game and a lot more to talk about. We'll have more to share on the Rogue and Mage before launch as well. Next week, we look forward to Companions Week, along with another Discord Q&A for August 30th, where they'll be answering more questions about the game. I don't know about you guys, but if you're watching this high-level gameplay and this doesn't make you excited just a little bit, I don't know what will. I, like many of you, were skeptical about the initial reveal trailer for Dragon Age Veilguard. Like, something just felt really off about that trailer, but now that we've got the release date trailer, as well as all of the other gameplay that we've received, I'm starting to get really excited for this game, like maybe a little too excited. The next few weeks and next month or so are going to be filled with Dragon Age Veilguard news, and I can't wait to just explore everything. If you guys want to stay up to date with everything Dragon Age Veilguard, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news. That's going to wrap it up. Thanks again for watching. This has been Wes, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.